When we think about ancient history, our minds usually jump straight from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, right? But what about that crucial, absolutely revolutionary chapter that got us from one to the other? Well, today we're diving into that story. We're exploring the Copper Age, humanity's very first adventure into the world of metal.
I mean, think about it. It's a massive leap in technology, isn't it? One moment, our ancestors are chipping away at flint, and the next, they're literally pulling metal out of rocks and bending it to their will with fire. How on earth did that happen? That's the big question we're tackling today.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll nail down what this transitional period was all about. Then we'll trace where it started, check out the new toolkit it gave us, take a quick trip around the world to see it in action, and finally, see how it paved the way for the next big thing.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, Between Stone and Bronze. We're going to get a really clear picture of this so-called Forgotten Revolution.
So the official kind of fancy name is the Chalcolithic period. It literally means Copper Stone Age. And honestly, that's the perfect name for it. Because this wasn't some sudden overnight switch. For centuries, people were using their trusty old stone tools right alongside these new, maybe a little bit experimental, copper ones. It was a time of overlap, of tinkering, of innovation.
And this quote just nails it. The Copper Age wasn't just another period on a timeline. It was the actual bridge. It's what allowed humanity to walk away from a world defined by stone and bone and step into a future that would be forged in metal.
Okay, so we've got the what. It's the bridge. But what about the where and the when? When did this global awakening to metal actually begin? Well, that brings us right to our timeline of firsts.
Now this is what's so cool. The discovery of copper wasn't just a single eureka moment. It happened independently all over the world. We see the earliest hints of it way back in 7500 BCE in Anatolia and Mesopotamia. 1,000 years later, it's really taking off in Syria. Then bam, it pops up in India and then over in Europe. You have completely different cultures, separated by huge distances, all starting to unlock the secrets of this shiny, reddish metal.
So knowing the when and where is one thing, but what did it all mean for people's day-to-day lives? What was the actual impact? Let's dive into that in our third section, the new copper toolkit, and see how this one material changed pretty much everything.
This chart really lays it out. Before copper, in the Neolithic world, you have these small farming villages. But once copper enters the picture, everything changes. Suddenly you have fortified settlements. Why? Because people now have valuable resources to protect. This one change kickstarts the need for defense, for better organization, and for the very first time you start to see the seeds of complex societies and even warfare. It was a total system upgrade.
And here are the key pieces of that upgrade. The real game changer was smelting, this unbelievable discovery that you could use intense heat to literally melt rock and let pure copper flow out. That one technology fueled everything else. It made copper a precious resource, which led to towns with walls built to protect it, which then required massive trade networks to move it around. And all along the way, unique cultures were flourishing.
All right, let's make this history feel a little more real. We're going to take a quick world tour to see these incredible changes in action.
First stop, India. Over in Rajasthan, a group called the Ahar Banas culture started tapping into the local copper mines. And they weren't just making pretty ornaments. No, they were using this new material to supercharge their whole economy, making better farming tools and creating huge trade networks.
Now, let's hop over to Europe. The Varna culture, and what's now Bulgaria, gives us a totally different glimpse. Archaeologists found these incredible graves there, just packed with gorgeous copper ornaments. This tells us copper wasn't just practical, it quickly became a symbol of wealth, power, and high status. It was the original bling.
And we'll finish our tour in the Middle East, which was pretty much ground zero for this whole revolution. Early sites in Jordan and Israel were some of the world's very first pioneers of metallurgy. This is where you can see the clearest line being drawn from simple farming communities to the complex, metal-working societies that would eventually dominate the ancient world.
So, if copper was this amazing, revolutionary thing, why aren't we still in the Copper Age? That's a great question, and it brings us to our final section, how this era forged the next one, and why it was, in the end, a transition.
You see, innovation never, ever stops. So these artisans, they mastered copper, but they also quickly discovered its limits. Turns out, pure copper is pretty soft. Not great if you need a really strong tool or a weapon that won't bend.
But that limitation just pushed them to get creative. They started experimenting, mixing copper with other metals, and then they hit the jackpot. They added a little bit of tin and created a brand new alloy. Think of it as a metal cocktail that was way stronger and more durable. They had created bronze.
And just like that, the game changed. Bronze was so much better, so superior, that its invention kicked off a whole new technological era. The Copper Age was over, but it had served its incredibly important purpose. It was the essential practice round, the training ground, that made the Bronze Age possible in the first place.
So when you look back, the Copper Age is this powerful testament to human ingenuity. It was our first real mastery of an element, a moment that completely rewired our societies, our economies, everything. And it really makes you wonder, when you look at our world today, what's going to be our next first? What material or technology are we just starting to master right now that will be the bridge to a future we can barely even imagine?